Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today we're finna react to every NFL position's Mount Rushmore. So we're gonna do Mount Rushmores for the NFL, every NFL position. That means the Mount Rushmore for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, linebackers, cornerbacks, free safeties, punters, kickers. Probably even coaches, who knows? But anyways, though, without further ado, let's get right into it.
His receivers go to work.
We're not just talking about the players you liked growing up or the guy your dad swore was the greatest ever. Today we're going to be looking for the 4 best players at every position who defined the game and left the sport permanently changed. We're going position by position, from the offense to the defense and the specialists in between. We're going to be starting with the most important position here, and that's quarterback. The debate about who goes on Mount Rushmore.
We all know Tom Brady. Peyton Manning is going to be on there.
People put at the very top of the GOAT debate, and the numbers make that an easy case to defend.
John Elway is a lock for sure.
10 total appearances. When he was 43 years old, he went to Tampa Bay with a new team in a new city and still managed to win the whole thing. Brady spent 2 decades in New England winning with different teammates and different versions of himself as a passer. He wasn't the most physically gifted quarterback on this list, but his ability to process the game and avoid the mistakes that end seasons was something that we'd never seen before. He has the most passing yards in history, passing touchdowns, wins, Super Bowl wins, and appearances, along with Super Bowl MVPs, and like 20 other awards. When we talk about the GOAT debate, it starts and ends with him. Joe Montana is next up, and the thing is,
Joe Montana
in a way so smooth it built his nickname, Joe Cool. He ran the West Coast offense for Bill Walsh at a level that made it look less like a football system and more like a perfectly timed dance. He made 4 Super Bowls and walked away with 4 wins, and he didn't throw a single interception across all 4 of those games. The entire modern passing game, including the timing routes and the short throws you see every team run now, traces a direct line back to what Montana was doing in San Francisco during the 1980s. Before Tom Brady came along, Joe was looked at as the standard for the position. Peyton Manning has a spot up here as well, and his case is built on something else entirely. Where Montana played the position with beauty, Peyton took it apart at the line of scrimmage before the ball was even snapped. He finished his career with 5 MVPs, which is more than anyone else in history. He changed how quarterbacks process information by turning the pre-snap read into its own art form, and he forced every defense in the league to change how they communicated just to slow him down. Peyton ended his career with more regular season wins than anyone at the time, and he did it against modern defenses that were built specifically to stop him. He broke the touchdown passing record that Dan Marino held for over 30 years in 2004. Then he broke it again in 2013. He won Super Bowls in Indianapolis and Denver as 2 completely different types of players, which is basically a career in 2 acts that both deserve to be on its own wall. Patrick Mahomes is the only active player here, and putting him here is not just recency bias. He's already had 3 Super Bowl titles by the time he had 30 and 2 MVP awards in his trophy case. His career passer rating of 100.8 is one of
John Elway. I mean, it's debatable, but
the highest we've ever seen. His yards per game at 285.2 is the highest of all time. Pat does things with the football that doesn't even fit inside a normal evaluation. He makes off-platform throws that arrive exactly on time, no-look passes, and he creates plays that defensive coordinators study on film but still can't stop. His first full year as a starter in 2018 resulted in 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, which didn't look like a debut at all. He was the youngest to win the MVP award at the time he won his first one. It looked like a player who already knew everything there was to know about the league. The case is still being built for him to be the GOAT, but he's done enough to be carved in stone. The 4 quarterbacks on this wall represent 4 different versions of how to play the position. Now the quarterback has to throw to somebody, so let's talk about who's on the other end of those passes. Jerry Rice's numbers don't need a long speech to prove.
Yeah, for the Mount Rushmore wide receivers, come on, bro. It's got to be Jerry Rice number 1. T.O. got to be on this list. T.O. has to be on this list. Randy got to be on this list too. And for the 4th spot, it's up in the air.
his greatness.
I'll let the brother decide.
895 yards and
but Jerry Ross, I said Jerry Ross, Jerry Rice, and
feeling like permanent fixtures of the sport. With the numbers don't
Terrell Owens, T.O. and Randy got to be on here without question.
He trained in the California hills while his teammates were home resting, and that gap between Rice and everybody else wasn't just physical. It was the product of a standard he set for himself that nobody else was willing to match. Randy Moss is an argument for the physical ability as a force in nature. He was 6'4" with sprinter's speed and hands that made impossible catches look routine, which forced defensive coordinators to build game plans around him before the snap even happened. His rookie season was maybe the best we've ever seen from any rookie in NFL history, along with his 2007 season with New England, which produced 23 receiving touchdowns and is still the record for a single season. Moss didn't just beat coverages, he made the whole idea of coverage feel pointless. And the same went for maybe the most controversial person here so far in Calvin.
Oh, I forgot about Calvin. Yeah, Calvin Johnson.
That argument taken to its absolute extreme. His 2012 season produced 1,964 receiving yards, and that single season record still stands today. He set it on a Lions team that gave opposing defenses very little else to worry about. So those numbers came against double teams in full attention. Calvin retired after 9 seasons with yards still left on his body, and the league has spent every year since looking for somebody built like him who can also run and catch like him. And so far, nobody has shown up. Lastly is a man out in the desert. Larry Fitzgerald played 17
over Terrell Owens. I get it, the longevity, I get it, but I'll still take it Terrell Owens. Nah, bro. Nah, I don't agree with this at all, bro. Hell no.
Turn off that light!
Hell no. I can't agree with this one, bro. I can't agree with this one, bro. I can't co-sign that, big bro.
Hell no! Trash ass nigga.
Boy, it's out the mud. We got Rashad McCown.
Kobe's 81. Kobe's 81.
I can't co-sign that, big brother, but I ain't mad at you for what you do. I ain't mad at nothing you do.
Seasons at a level that made consistency look like a personality.
I'm taking Terrell every time, bro. T.O. was a lot.
492 receiving yards over his long career. His 2008 playoff run was legendary as he posted 546 yards and 7 TDs in just 4 games. He dragged Arizona within just a few minutes of a Super Bowl title that year. Larry ran the sharpest routes of his generation and caught everything thrown near him without ever complaining about his role, finishing his career with more tackles than drops. That kind of greatness just doesn't make any sense. Tight ends got to get their own love as well. Shannon Sharp was a prototype.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp.
Before Sharp came along, tight ends were mostly blockers who occasionally caught short passes over the middle. He ran routes like a wide
Shannon Sharp,
mismatches that defenses weren't able to handle, winning 3 Super Bowl rings in the process. Every receiving tight end in the game today is running a route that Sharp helped design.
Travis Kelce probably gonna be on here. Yep, and Tony Gonzalez for sure.
1,325 career catches and 14 Pro Bowls.
Maybe Antonio Gates. I don't know.
Tony G showed that a tight end could be the most reliable pass catcher on the field every single week, regardless of who was playing quarterback. He proved the position could anchor an offense the way no tight end had ever done before. Then Rob Gronkowski redefined what the position could do in the red zone and at the attack. He's a model tight end blocking and receiving wise. His 2011 season produced 17 receiving touchdowns, which is still the record for a tight end. He was a great enough blocker to line up at fullback and a receiver good enough to draw top cornerbacks in coverage. That specific combination of power and skill simply hadn't existed before he stepped onto the field. Travis Kelce is the current standard for
I knew Travis was going to be on here.
He had 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons at one point and holds the record for the most playoff catches in NFL history. He's a player opposing coordinators spent close to a decade worrying about the most, yet he still found a way to show up at the end of games. But pass catchers aren't the only way to score. Sometimes you just gotta hand the rock off. Running back is a position where this debate gets pretty heated.
Running back.
Not with this first guy. Jim Brown played 9 seasons.
Yeah, RP Jim Brown, for sure, for sure. Jim Brown. Barry gotta be on here, bro. Barry Sanders gotta be on here. Barry. Adrian Peterson gotta be on here. Just for all the records. And then Emmitt Smith for sure.
Led the NFL in rushing for 8 of them, which is a level of dominance we just don't see anymore. He retired at 29 years old while he was still at the absolute peak of his powers, finishing with 12,312 yards and 3 MVP awards, 2 coming in his first 2 seasons and his last happening in his final year. history. He's a player opposing coordinators spent close to a decade.
Hey, yo, why do that?
Yet he still found a way to show NFL in rushing for 8 of them, and his last happening in his final year. The numbers are extraordinary, but they don't fully capture what made Brown different on the field. He weighed 230 pounds and ran like someone who decided physics only applied to other people. Defenders didn't bring him down cleanly, and usually they just slowed him down enough for help to arrive. Jim set the physical standard for what a running back could demand from a defense, and nobody who came after him moved like that. Walter Payton was a complete back who
I forgot about Walter.
Field. Over 16 seasons, Sweetness racked up 16,726 yards and Maine died in Pro Bowls. But the number that actually tells a story is how many of those yards came while he was carrying a Bears team that gave him almost no help. Walter blocked, he caught passes out of the backfield, and he even threw a handful of touchdown passes during his career. He wasn't just a runner, he was the entire offense for long stretches of Chicago's history, and he handled that weight without ever making it look like a burden. His longevity and consistency at the highest level of the game is what put him up here, without any real serious argument. He won the Super Bowl in 1985 towards the tail end of his career, but he was still second in MVP voting that season. The person he passed the torch to was another player wearing blue.
Barry is a lot.
Sanders put up
You gotta put Barry on
15,269 rushing yards on a Detroit Lions team that only made
leads Emmitt Smith
10 seasons. He did it mostly alone without a dominant offensive line or a passing game that could stretch the field. What Sanders had was instinct and footwork that made defenders look like they were guessing, which they were because no one knew where he was going next. He put together 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons and retired second on the all-time list with plenty of gas left in the tank, along with rushing for 2,000 yards in his second to last season while winning MVP in the process. The eye test argument for Barry says he's the best to ever do it in my opinion, but I'll leave that argument up to y'all. Lastly, for running backs, I was gonna let my Eagles bias go against them, but I decided against it. Emmitt Smith holds their all-time rushing record at 18,355 yards and won 3 Super Bowls along the way. He took home the MVP in 1993, along with winning the Super Bowl MVP that season, and played for another decade at the position that typically wears down bodies faster than any other position. Some people claim he just benefited from that great Dallas offensive line, but that criticism doesn't hold up with his full career. Smith kept producing well into his 30s, and he kept finding yards and winning games long after others would have quit. The running backs needed someone to open those holes for him though, so let's get to the men who made that possible. The offensive line is a position group that decides whether a team is going to
this where you got me.
fail, and the people in this level right now are the best to ever do it.
Offensive lines, I don't know a fucking soul.
And made 11 Pro Bowls during that time, having made 9 first-team All-Pros in 10
I'm
years.
sorry, but I don't know a fucking soul for offensive lines.
Something was different.
I'm a football fan, but I'm not that deeply entrenched into it.
He was a pass blocker who could
come back to me when we get on defense.
Space, but he was also a run blocker whose leverage and footwork created lanes that simply didn't exist until he made them. The consensus among coaches and historians is that nobody has ever played the position better. John Hanna spent 13 seasons in New England, and the team never had a losing record when he was healthy enough to play a full schedule. Sports Illustrated even put him on the cover back in 1981 and called him the best offensive lineman to ever play the game. He earned 7 first-team All-Pro selections at guard, which is the position that usually doesn't draw any attention unless something goes horribly wrong. Hanna's job was to pull on sweeps and hold the interior against massive nose tackles while giving a quarterback a clean pocket. He did all of that at a standard nobody at his position could match for an entire generation. Bruce Matthews played 19 seasons and lined up at every single spot on the offensive line at some point in his career. Whether it was at center, guard, or tackle, he started games at all 5 positions and earned 14 Pro Bowl nods across that entire span. The durability argument alone would put him here, but when you add in the versatility and the fact that he blocked for teammates who made their own Pro Bowls because of his work, the case is almost impossible to argue against. Jason Kelce retired as the modern definition of what a center is supposed to be in today's game, aging like absolute fine wine. He earned 6 first-team All-Pro selections and served as the engine for a Philadelphia offense that won 1 Super Bowl and fought its way to another before he retired. Kelce processed defenses faster than any coverage could shift, and he communicated protection adjustments in a spread system that demanded total precision at the line of scrimmage. He physically outlasted nose tackles who outweighed him by 50 pounds and changed how teams think about the center position in the pass-first league. His film from the last decade is what young players study to understand what the job looks like when it gets done right. These 4 players don't get any flashy highlight reels you see from other positions. Nobody builds a viral video around a pull block or a pass set, but every long run and clean pocket on this list traces back to someone doing exactly what these men did. When it comes to the defensive line, I have 2 different sections, pass rushers and then the interior defensive linemen, but we're going to be starting with the pass rushers first. Lawrence Taylor changed the way football is played. I get it. He's a linebacker. But I'm not going to be doing linebackers like him. I'm just going to be doing middle linebackers, but you'll see that in the next section. So, whatever. Opposing coaches started paying left tackles quarterback money specifically because of what LT was doing to their passers every single Sunday. He won the NFL MVP in 1986 as a defensive player, putting up 20 and a half sacks that season.
So, by this definition, will we be putting... So for this one, if we're going to do Lawrence Taylor, by this definition, I would probably say Aaron Donald, Mean Joe Green. I guess those would be the other two. Myles Garrett, I guess.
The MVP is an award that has gone to quarterbacks and running backs exclusively for every year since, meaning no other defensive player has won it since LT did. The argument that someone else in
DeMarcus Ware
the league was more valuable was simply impossible to make at the time he was playing. His combination of speed and instinct at outside linebacker created a position archetype that the league is still trying to find answers for 40 years later. JJ Watt won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 4 seasons, from 2012 to 2015, which is something nobody else has done at the position before him. He recorded 16 or more sacks in 4 different seasons while batting down passes at the line of scrimmage and even catching touchdowns on offense. At his absolute peak, Watt was the most disruptive player in the sport, and the Texans built their entire defensive identity around what he could do when nobody could stop him. Bruce Smith finished his career with 200 sacks, which remains the most in NFL history. He earned 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards and played across 4 different Bills teams that went to consecutive Super Bowls. Lastly is the guy who just broke the sack record in Myles Garrett, being the only active player here on this level. He had 23 sacks for the Browns this season and consistently produces double-digit sacks even when teams are scheming specifically to slow him down. He has the kind of first-step quickness off the edge that offensive tackles lose sleep over during the season. His career is still being written today, but enough of it is already on paper to see exactly where he lands in history. Now goes the D-line. Aaron Donald spent 10 seasons as an interior defensive lineman and won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He finished with 111 career sacks, which is a number that interior linemen almost never reach because the double teams come faster and the gaps are much smaller. Donald beat those double teams routinely because he was so quick off the snap and so strong through contact. Single blocking him was never a realistic option for an offense, and even 2 blockers weren't a guaranteed solution to stop the problems he created. Mean Joe Green was the heart of the Steel Curtain defense. The Pittsburgh dynasty of the 1970s ran through that defense, and the defense ran through Green. He won 4 Super Bowls and 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards while making everyone around him better just by being on the field. Opposing offenses spent so much of their game plan preparing for him that it opened up opportunities for the rest of the line. Alan Page won the NFL MVP in 1971 as a defensive tackle, and that remains the first and only time a defensive lineman has ever taken home that award. He earned 9 Pro Bowls and provided the kind of disruptive force that changed how teams valued the interior pass rush. Before him, that kind of pressure was seen as a luxury, but he turned it into a requirement for a championship defense, even though the Vikings never won a championship. Vince Wilfork is the name that generates the most discussion on this list. That's
I forgot
exactly
about
why he's
Vince.
here. 2-gap nose tackles don't usually show up in the sack totals, but Vince Wilfork controlled the line of scrimmage in a way that freed up everyone else around him to make plays. New England defense during his peak years reflected his dominance, and the eye test shows he was the anchor that made those units work. For the linebackers, I only did middle linebackers, but shout out to all the off-ball linebackers that would have made it here, like Derrick Brooks. Dick Butkus played 9 seasons and made 8 Pro Bowls during an era where people measured linebackers by how hard they hit and how often they found the ball. The reason every conversation
Ray Lewis for sure got to be on here.
Just about the stats, but rather the
Brian Urlacher, if you want to,
even had a chance to define it. He played middle linebacker like it was a personal grudge, and while coaches tried to bottle up that ferocity, teammates, coaches, and other players,
I forgot to pronounce that nigga.
They mostly failed because what Butkus had wasn't a technique.
Eric Thomas, if you want,
it was a disposition that lived in his gut. And every linebacker since has been measured up to him, and they will never come close. Jack Lambert served as the emotional heart of the Steel Curtain defense, and his 6 first-team All-Pro selections and the 1976 Defensive Player of the Year award proved just how dominant he really was. He brought a physical presence to the middle of that unit that made the Pittsburgh dynasty feel like a mathematical certainty, and he played with controlled aggression that kept every single teammate locked into their assignment. The Steelers won back-to-back championships in the mid-70s because of what Lambert produced on the field, field. But his legacy is also built on the impossible standards he demanded from the guy standing next to him. Ray Lewis is the most complete linebacker to ever put on a helmet. He won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards and 2 Super Bowls while leading the league in tackles during 3 different seasons. He played 17 years and stayed elite well into his mid-30s, which is almost unheard of at a position that usually breaks bodies down much faster than that. He had a gift for diagnosing plays before the ball was even snapped, and he used a shedding technique that looked effortless from the nosebleed seats while he communicated the entire defensive structure on every single down. His impact on the identity of the Baltimore Ravens wasn't just about the numbers he put up, but rather the way he fundamentally changed how the defense functioned. Luke Kuechly walked away from the game
I forgot
at
about
only
Luke.
28 years old, yet he still managed to pack enough greatness.
Damn, bro, there's so many damn names.
He won Defensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year while racking up 5 first-team All-Pro selections, and his processing speed was so fast that opponents often described it as genuinely unsettling. Kuechly saw things developing on the field 3 seconds before anyone else did. In the NFL, 3 seconds is usually the difference between a tackle for loss and a huge gain. He represents the modern answer to what happens when pure instinct and obsessive preparation lives in the same body. And his career is a masterclass in playing the game with your mind just as much as your shoulders. Now we get to the most fun part, which is the DBs. Cornerback has to belong to Deion Sanders first and foremost, because he didn't.
Deion Sanders is a lot.
He made them irrelevant for 60 minutes. Sanders played both sides of the ball, and
after Deion, I'll probably say Darrell Revis. Darrell Revis. Charles Woodson. Darrell Revis, Charles Woodson. Those would be my guys. If you want to throw Champ Bailey in there, I'm fine with that. Oh, Rod Woodson. Yeah.
Appeared in both the Super Bowl and World Series, winning Defensive Player of the Year.
I was like, wait a minute.
Which is a level of athleticism we might never see again in our life.
Oh, Night Train. I forgot about Night Train too. Yeah, shout out.
By turning it from a reactive job into a shutdown.
Night Train for sure.
Half of the field from an opponent's game plan. With 12 Pro Bowls and 8 All-Pro selections, his mere presence on the roster forced offensive coordinators to rethink their entire personnel packages before the week of practice even started. Champ Bailey earned 12 Pro Bowls and possessed the technical reins to play every single coverage scheme at an elite level over the course of 16 seasons. But during that exact same era, Darrell Revis had a 5-year stretch where he was simply the best cornerback on the planet, and he would shadow the best receiver on the other team regardless of where they lined up. Revis Island wasn't just a clever nickname for a marketing campaign, but was a real place on the field where the league's best targets went and completely disappeared for the entire afternoon. Charles Woodson rounds out this group with a career that covered cornerback and safety at a Hall of Fame level for 18 years, and he's still the only player ever to win a Heisman, a Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year trophy on his mantle. Speaking of safety, we have the best of all time first up. Ed Reed had a way of turning interceptions into
Ed Reed is a lot. For me, Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, Brian Dawkins. I'm trying to think who else. Free safety. Be those 3 right there. I can't think of a 4th one. 4th one be up in there.
Backed by
I can't think of a 4th one.
That made quarterbacks terrified to throw passes they had practiced 1,000 times. He was all over the field and the most feared safety of all time according to both Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Ronnie Lott was just as versatile, playing cornerback, strong safety, and free safety across 16 years while collecting 51 interceptions and 4 Super Bowl rings along the way. The man loved the game so much, he amputated his own finger just to keep playing.
Damn.
Brian Dawkins was a different kind of monster who finished his career with 37 picks and 36 sacks, and he remains the only safety in the history of the league to hit at least 20 in both those categories. Troy Polamalu used his instincts to make the Steelers' defense a nightmare to scheme against because he moved before the snap in ways that coordinators couldn't predict. He won 2 Super Bowls and the 2010 Defensive Player of the Year award by playing a style of football that looked different.
Fred Polamalu was my guy.
But lastly, there's only one group left to talk about, and those are the specialists. Specialists don't usually get all the respect that they deserve, and that's going to stay true here because we're only going to be going over 2 kickers, 1 punter, and 1 return specialist. Justin Tucker was the most accurate kicker of all time, but now he's one of the most accurate kickers of all time in NFL history.
Justin Tucker, Adam.
He also held the record for the longest field goal ever made at 66 yards. The man was automatically a decade and a half. Then he got
how you pronounce it
in the Baltimore massage clubs. Adam Vinatieri won 4 Super Bowls.
Vinatieri.
That decided 2 of those championships. His entire legacy.
I guess Devin Hester.
He performed his best when the season was on the line, which is the most direct definition of being clutch that sports allows. He has more game-winning field goals in the playoffs than anyone else who has ever held that job. And the kind of reliability under pressure is why he's a legend. Ray Guy was the first pure punter to ever be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and his career changed how teams
I don't know too much about
as a strategic weapon.
Kickers and punters.
Corner punt became a staple because of him. The last person here is the greatest returner of all time, Devin Hester, becoming the first Hall of Famer based solely on his return ability, having the rules changed completely for him, and holding the record for the most total returns ever with 20. These are the best to ever do it at their position, but I'm sure someone somehow will disagree with something. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new.
Alrighty, man. That's just gonna about do it for this one. Hey, good video, good video. Some spots I didn't agree with. Some spots, hey, you brought up some names that just made me go, oh shit, I forgot about him. How I forget about him? It'd be like that though. But anyways, though, most definitely good video. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one. I will see you all in the next video. Till then, deuces.